Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business of Success. Today, I have someone with me who I've actually met before, but in a bit of a different context. And today, I actually get to interview her directly. I have with me Evgenia or Jenny. And Jenny is the founder of ZCOMMS. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about your history, your journey, your career. Tell everyone sort of a bit about you.
Okay, thank you so much for the invitation. This is a really huge honor for me.
Mhm.
And yes, we had amazing opportunity to speak earlier about our research. So I think we will talk a bit about this research today, later. So yeah, I have been working in PR for more than a decade. And I started in house and then eventually moved up in the independent consulting. And 4 years ago, I launched my own agency, ZCOMMS, which supports technology company across different sectors from AI and robotics to femtech and different markets. Main market for us is the US, but also we work in Europe and the Middle East markets.
Yeah, and we got connected over one of the femtech founders that you have worked with, which was really very cool, kind of AI for the mental health space. So I really enjoyed that experience. And why we're here today, I think, was even more relevant, especially when it comes to the health of workers here in the US. I think the last year we saw a lot of data coming out of different places, but especially data that I quote often coming from Catalyst Inc., which has done a study about US workforce, and 455,000 women left the US workforce last year. And they cited flexibility or flexible work arrangements as one of the top reasons. So when you brought to me your research about flexible work arrangements, I was just so intrigued. So can you talk a little bit about this research? What made you want to do this research? And what did it reveal about the workforce as we know it?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I have been working remotely since 2000, 2007, I think. So it was my first job. I used to work as a freelance journalist, and this is in those times it was really strange. It sounds strange, and my grandma, when she's coming to my room every time asking me like, when you will find a normal job. It was like, sounds strange. You work at home, like from computer. Why? You can't find a normal job. And today we live in a totally different world when it's absolutely normal. We live in a world where we have a lot of freelance specialists, we a lot of founders who can build startups and even big companies and work remotely. So that's why we decided to make research and developing what's going on about this because, it was some changes after the COVID because after COVID, during the COVID, it was a lot of changes and a lot of companies decided to work remotely, and a lot of specialists, even though they never have been working remotely, had this experience, and people understood that they have a choice, and it's sometimes it's okay for some people and sometimes it's not okay, and this is really interesting. And we just decided to exploring what had changed after 6 years, like 5 6 years after
Yeah.
COVID, and we realized that this is something different. And by the way, we have a totally different generation. We have Gen Z and we have millennials, and we can see their really different attitude to work. So today is like for a lot of people, it's not a normal to work from 9 to 5. And this is today for example, for Gen Z generation is not a perk how it was for my time to work in flexible hours. This is not a perk. This is a like basis, and we can see totally different. So that's why we decided to exploring this topic because I based on my experience, I based on experience of my team, because I have a lot of job interview with a potential employee, and I can see what this is absolutely normal. And sometimes, for example, big companies can lose because they like requiring from they team to work from an office, and not for everyone is okay to work from office. And sometimes you can choose, for example, a really interesting company and normal salary and everything, interesting task and interesting job, and comparative, like maybe a startup, maybe agency as well. And but this is a flexible schedule and possible to work from like Thailand or something. And people have a choice. I think this is the huge difference if we can compare it with 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. I mean, there's so much rich data here, and I think, it's more important than ever. What my fear is, especially if workers are just leaving great jobs because of flexibility, like are we losing great talent in those jobs and those careers? And I know that your data did cite that flexibility related searches are made up 75% of all job searches. So people are starting to prioritize flexibility over even pay, right? And I have many examples of this in my own life where I saw women step down from like even leadership into more IC roles so they could gain back some time. Tell me this, like from the research or from your opinion, how does Gen Z's view of flexible work change versus previous generations, right? I think some generations we thought it was like a nice to have. Like you worked from home for a long time. I worked from home since 2013, but for many people it was not a normal thing. But now they're requiring it. They're kind of saying, "Hey, this is baseline." So, how does this view differ and why does it differ so much?
Yeah, so what we see is that Gen Z is one of the main forces behind the growing demand for flexible jobs, and they view a remote or hybrid work as something every employee should offer because many of them study or started their careers during the pandemic because this is a difference like 6 years ago, yeah, and while online work and education were the only options. So for them, is that's why for them it's normal.
Yeah.
And as a result, they became used to this level of flexibility. In contrast, my generation was used a traditional 9 to 5 hour schedule and work from our office desk. I think for us, flexibility feels more like a gift or something, yeah, and like a perk and something not everyone offers and everyone gets.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it's also like it's where you began, it's what you expect then based on that where you began. But you told me like your team is remote. One of the fundamental pillars for a really functional remote culture is trust, right? So tell me a little bit about how do you build trust and also productivity in your team or other teams that you've seen?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. Someone already asked me about that because they even asked me about if I installation some program
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
check what we're doing during
Monitor.
the business day. We don't have any of check programs for what we're doing during the business days. This is my question on a job interview. I every time trying to understand if potential employee can get some responsibility for the schedule because I'm not this founder who can check every hour, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And so we have a team planning we have two different team planning for decide depending on different markets, and also we have a special planning if we have a necessary for discuss something, and also each manager has a weekly call with our clients, and also we have two different, like we have a task manager Asana we used to work, and I really like it. This is really comfortable. And second, we use Excel sheets, and we can put each publication, what's going on, and we can send this link to a client, and he can check. For example, sometimes they asked us like what what we were doing last year in December, and we say, okay, here we are, we can
Yeah.
check it. And it's if a manager not really successful, I really can see it after the first, maybe second week. This is This is really clear, and I don't need to check every hour what he's doing. Maybe first days I'm asking about some results, but after that I just can see, because 1 week is a really great period for understanding what's going on. For me, it's not important. For example, when I was an employee in a company, for me it was really destroying when I have to ask my top manager, like, I need to go, or for example, uh, a doctor, yeah, and could you please, can I go to out to the doctor? And for me, it's not really important. Of course, mm, they can tell me, and like for tomorrow I will be out in the morning, but when I will take all my tasks, and I have some calls, some important tasks and others. But I think we all adults. And this is if you are not successful, if you are not a result, if this is really truly clear after 1, 2 weeks maximum. That's it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, trust is foundational. And to be honest, like I think along with being having remote work, people are wanting to build autonomy. And with the right mechanisms of task tracking or other things that you are saying, hey, we have these things that need to get done. Are you getting them done? You're able to do it also within this flexible arrangement, right? You go run to the doctor if you need to. What about you in your research you talked about there's also a resurgence of people wanting to do learning, like e-learning. I mean, especially in the age of AI, I'm hearing it everywhere, right? From folks that are like, I'm taking a course, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And so I wonder how you're seeing, like, is online courses or training a way for companies to also incentivize employees, right? Or make them feel whole if they're seeking that out?
Yeah, this is a great question. But if it's possible, I would like to share with you some numbers, because I have some interesting conditional data points of our research. If you can give me an opportunity to share with you, I can share.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
please. That'd be great.
So, interesting numbers that I can share with our listeners. 71% of Gen Z prioritize schedule flexibility. Could you imagine 71%? This is really a lot.
Yeah.
And 43% of Gen Z workers participate in the gig economy, which allows them to maintain freedom and control over their schedules. 46% of millennials plan to change jobs within the next year. And I think here is another interesting topic. This is burnout. And I think burnout, of course, we have a lot of jokes in internet about burnout along Gen Z, but I think Gen Z is, it's like they trying to find themselves. This is not a huge problem, but this is a big problem with millennials would like to change something, and they're really burn out after they work. And this is a really important topic, because I think exactly millennials, these people who's changing economy right now, and who can give us some really important changes in our life, in our world. And this is what I really believe. But maybe we have to be patient, and we have to wait, and Gen Z will show us what they can do.
Yeah, I have heard of Gen Z folks already trying to switch career or burning out, to be honest, because I think there are, a lot of demands in life and career and things like that nowadays. So it is interesting that you call that out because I think millennials can help us like teach us, but everything, the learnings I think can be applied for Gen Z also, right? I think the Gen Z, everyone can benefit, right? Which is kind of
Yeah.
nice. You have a multi-generational team, right? How do you manage all your generations? Then people have different career goals and things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to understand the jokes, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
6, 7 or something. This is a joke. Yeah. I think, I don't know, I think we require more attention, more like patience, and sometimes to be more, I don't know, explain something more clear when you can explain it to millennial or something like that. Yeah, but I think we're really valuable, a really good attitude to them, because, for example, I remember those times when I had really like not polite conversation, like you have to, you must, something like that. Yeah. And today I think it's impossible to talk like that with Gen Z.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there's definitely more. We all have to be a little more cautious, and possibly a better turn, right? I think a lot of times in the workplace, even amongst like women and men, there would be things said that were inappropriate. And like now, I think people are just being more cautious and aware. If that's a good thing, I think that, that helps everyone. Okay, let's switch a little bit. So you talked about, with all these career changes, 39% of career change searches are tied to workers at age 40. So I can kind of relate to this. I also pivoted my career over 40. You're seeing that in the data. What advice would you have for professionals looking to pivot later in their careers? Or what are you seeing as trends in the industry that you could share with them?
Yeah, so we found that in the United States, for example, between March 22 and February 26, online courses for career change emerged as dominant query at around 50%, accounting for a substantial share of interest. And it was also age specific. By February 26, around 40% of the searches were tied to transition at age 40.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Any things like what is going to help somebody later, do you think, in their career? Or is it some of this like online learning that is going to help people? I'm curious if you saw anything in the data that can help, guide somebody that might feel like, is this the right time? I guess the data is showing there is no right time. You could do this anytime, right? Is what the data is showing essentially.
This is depends on situation. I think this is really depends on not only about the age. For example, you can't apply for another degree to make a pilot. Several short programs and self education can be enough. And we see that many workers choose this path.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so last question for you. What do you think are some recommendations or maybe some things, some trends that you're seeing for the future? So maybe a recommendation for somebody that's building a company to start better, internal structures, flexibility programs, or any trends that you're seeing for the future.
I think I can see a really big trend for education, and I think people, but again, this is depends on person. This is
Mhm.
totally different. For example, me as a founder of PR agency, I every time ask on a job interview what you prefer. For example, to dig deeper in one task or to do a lot of tasks at the same time, because this is both option is okay, but this is different people. So for different people, different task, different company, different potential career. But I think the online education now is a really big trend. This is as I mentioned before, this is also the trend among millennials. I think for Gen Z, they also trying to find themselves and trying to exploring themselves in different ways. And for example, me, I also was in different position. I used to work to sell cars. I used to work to
Mhm.
be a journalist, and it was really different profession what I was trying. And it was really helpful to me to find myself today, because agency for me is a really interesting way, because I can be in the different roles the one day. So I can be entrepreneur, I can be PR specialist, I can be, I don't know, accounting, and a lot of options, by the way. And I think this is my advice, yes, to trying, because you know I'm trying to understand what life is really short, and the more option you can try and use, maybe my advice to say yes to a lot of opportunities. If some opportunities to come to you, just if you wanted to try it, just try it, because you
Mhm.
never know um, which opportunities can give you some good experience in future, because you can find you everywhere. For example, I used to work as not work, but I'm trying to exploring myself as a photography, and it was really interesting experience for me. And even today I'm really sorry about that I don't have enough time to exploring my art So yeah, and about trends, of course, this is AI, and I think people who don't use AI today, they really lose in the future. Yeah, I think AI tools. Like several days ago, someone, I don't remember who, but someone told me, "But I don't use AI in my job; it's not really necessary." And I was sitting and listening, and I thought like, how today? I think AI you can use in, like, even if you are, I don't know, clean apartments, you can find some life hacks of something, how to clean
Yeah,
table
totally.
and refrigerator or something like that. Yeah. And I think AI today is I don't know, it's a really helpful assistant. I can't imagine my life without AI. And I think it's this is it will be growing and growing, and we don't know how it will be, how it can be look in the future. For example, today we used to work we work with we used to work in past, and now we work with a neurotechnology company. At what they doing, this is a crazy. They just thinking about to put like implant in our brain, and how it can be used. So I don't know how will be looks our future in 10 years, but I think I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Good. I mean, so I think great lessons, right? Like people are taking up learning, they're able to pivot. I fully agree. Like the creative outputs, the creative things that people are doing are providing a little bit of that fulfillment in a different way. I'm seeing so many people leaning into their creativity while maintaining like a full-time job, and I just heard of somebody, if somebody needs inspiration listening today, I just heard of a friend who is using AI to manage his like health and wellness journey and track his macros and do all his exercise and fitness. So there's so many cool things you can do with AI. So definitely, get started, even if it's not like a work thing. Well, thank you so much. I think this was an amazing conversation, and your data set is just so rich of really interesting kind of trends and things that I think business owners should really think about, right? Is if you're managing multi-generational teams and as your teams skew a little bit more Gen Z and even Gen Alpha, how are you thinking about building the workplaces that they want to stay in, right? That's a really important differentiation. So thank you so much for sharing all this data and this discussion today.
Thank you so much to you for this conversation, and again, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes, take care. We'll see everyone on the next episode of The Business of Success. Thanks for listening to The Business of Success. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking about growth, value, talent, leadership, don't forget to follow along and share this episode with someone who is building something meaningful. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Customer X Success, which is helping organizations design customer value, build better and higher impact teams, and turn success into a growth strategy. You can learn more about Customer X Success at www.customerxsuccess.com. I'm Parul Bandari, and this is The Business of Success, where success is built, not just chased. Until next time, see you soon.